Hello and welcome to another Season Gaming Bitcast, episode 325. It is another fantastic Sunday, and the crew is back here together, ready to talk about the biggest gaming news of the week, some of the games we've been playing, reviews, and of course the chaos that continues to go on in the gaming industry. So I am here with my two compadres, beginning with the lawman himself, making sure everything is on the up and up in the gaming industry, and ensuring that all legal battles are solved without delay.
That's me. That is me. Well, after we talked about it last week, I did wind up making a video this week in virtual legality, and I think that it is a good one.
Do you want to say what it's about, or it's just that it's good?
It is a good one.
Fair enough. The surprise will be on you when you take a peek at the channel.
So. It's about the Federal Trade Commission and whether or not their lawsuit against Genshin Impact Hoyoverse is the sign of things to come as to how gacha games are perceived in a regulatory fashion in the United States.
Now I see why you didn't want to say what it was about.
Because it was too awesome to start the show off. We can only go down from here.
Surely.
Just full of excitement there. And of course, the Thai guy himself in the middle of a good review that we're going to just quickly mention. You can't say anything about it, so that was a pointless tease. But anyway, he's here. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing all right. I learned this morning that Season Gaming has laid me off as part of ongoing industry changes, I believe was the wording you gave me.
So I don't think you can be laid off if they're not otherwise paying you.
I don't know. It happens, man.
We do it in other ways. It's it's a bit harsh to talk about here, but
All right.
No severance at all.
No, zero. In fact, we actively make life worse for you.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, that's what we're trying to do.
That's always been fair. Before I was
oh man. So we have a few things to talk about today. We can finally talk about our reviews of Eternal Strands and Tales of Iron 2. We also had Citizen Sleeper 2 release. We had Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth release on PC. I know we were talking about that the other week. And then of course our major topics today are a couple big things. So we have Xbox, been continually talking about the publishing arm of Xbox and what they're going to do with some of their games. It was announced this week that Forza Horizon 5 is headed to PlayStation, so we'll touch on that and some other things going on in the Xbox universe. We got PlayStation leadership shuffle and rumor of a new state of play there and what's going on. And of course, we have BioWare and the sad state of affairs going on over there. So we're going to talk about all of that, of course. Before we do that, we've got a couple things to tackle. So we've still got a few weeks left. I was asking Travis before the show that he's headed to it is Tokyo, right? Or some other area of Japan. Headed to Tokyo for a couple weeks for his honeymoon. Can I come? Would having another guy be a problem? Or
actually, no, what's funny is Teddy was like, you guys know Teddy, right?
Yeah. Well, I do now. But
he's from the games industry. He works at IGN. But he was like, oh, I'm going to be in Tokyo like one of the days that you guys are there. Like we should do dinner. And I was like, okay. my boy inviting himself to my honeymoon. So.
To your honeymoon.
Long story short, my Teddy and I are going to a love hotel in Tokyo. So, we'll see what happens.
Nice.
Yeah. It sounds like a video game premise.
It really does. Yeah. Type of game D would love to play. She loves that yaoi.
Definitely.
She loves that yaoi, dude.
So we'll be talking more about that, of course, in the coming weeks, but he's still with us for a few weeks before he takes that trip. Let's hit our early Googleman super chat, of course, kicking us off before the show begins.
Googleman 81 10 euros writes, would playing with your Hot Wheels with an idle clicker running on your phone while inside a self-driving Tesla be considered bussin' these days?
For real.
FR. That's also a very old lingo, Hogue. I feel like I should tell you.
I think that you should invest in checking out middle school because they're still for realing as much as I can tell you.
So behind the times.
You know what? I can't speak to the hipness of middle schoolers. I can just tell you that they are still using that lingo.
They lost me from the start. So, yeah, I've got no response to this super chat. Googleman, you completely lost me on this one this morning.
Oh, I think
I
he'd
got
be
nothing.
bussing.
We
For
got
the
to click that,
record,
by the way.
For the record, in that FTC lawsuit that I was just talking about in virtual legality, they actually did have a quote about someone saying that they were bussing, and then they translated it for the court.
I would love to hear that translation.
Oh my god! Do you actually have the clip of that?
I don't
Like,
have
is there any? Was it recorded or is it just transcribed?
No, it's part of the video because I was reading through the lawsuit, and it is talking about something that a Twitch streamer called SS Sniper Wolf said, and they put the quote in, and then they say which means, and then they have the rest of whatever that was about whether she'd be bussing on the loot drops that she got.
I must say, SS Sniper Wolf is pretty provocative tag there.
I may be saying it wrong, but those are the letters and the tag.
Interesting. That guy
It could be triple S Sniper Wolf. I don't know.
Yeah, this is triple S Sniper Wolf.
Yes.
Interesting. I'm gonna go ahead and say I don't want to hang out with that dude.
Well, it's a lady.
Oh, okay. Well, it takes all kinds, I guess.
This is definitely where you come, folks, if you want the cutting edge understanding of the Twitch streaming landscape.
Yes, that's what we do here for sure. Googleman, thank you as always for kicking us off. And Willow is back gifting 5 season gaming memberships right at the start of the show. Thank you as always, Willow, and thank you for the commentary last week. She said last week that she was in the catch-up crew. She couldn't watch it live, but she was hanging out with us. So thank you so much as always to the both of you.
That's just classic vintage Willow to give 5 subs. It's vintage Willow.
It's vintage. Yeah. Yeah. We joked about this earlier this week, so I was going to kick us off with something that Bert and Dan and I used to do years ago on Bitcast called On the Spot, where you just think of a random gaming related question. Although I know Travis eventually will have non-gaming related questions, but this one's a gaming related
Always.
question. Just to, without talking to you about this first, to see what your response is. So the question I have for you guys this morning, off the top of your head, and Travis, I'll preface, don't overthink this.
This is going to be a 45-minute segment now.
Could be.
What do you believe is your most controversial gaming opinion?
That's not that hard. I have so many of those.
It shouldn't be.
I don't think the Halo 5 campaign was bad.
Okay. Yeah, that's
people give me guff for that all the time.
Yeah. I see where you're coming from. I still think it was problematic, but
I think if we got a sequel to it, people wouldn't think about that.
I am more annoyed at the fact that they ended it on such a cool scene that was never followed up on. That is frustrating.
Speaking of my language, man, it's happened to me a few times with some of my beloved properties recently. So
you got to have the courage of your convictions. There's no point otherwise.
You should tell the story you were going to tell. That's why you're a creative. That's what I think. And a lot of people pivot and they do it for the fans. And at that point, is it really art? I don't know any artists that ask for viewer feedback before they finish their painting. You know what I mean?
Hogue, what you got? Give me one. I mean, you give us controversial opinions every week, so I mean, this shouldn't be too hard. But
I tend to highlight my contrarian stances because the other stances are not that interesting. But I will say, I think that probably my most controversial at this point is that Resident Evil 4 is a misstep for the series and led it in a poor direction.
What game?
Resident Evil 4.
Resident Evil 4. Okay,
yeah.
That's pretty controversial.
Yeah, I'd say, considering like some people have that way up on the all-time games, and
I could do this all day, though. Honestly,
yeah, I know. This is your wheelhouse.
The Steve Rogers of contrarian video game opinions. I think that Gears of War 2 is a cloying, terribly written story. That people that get emotionally responsive to that are the worst consumers of stories in media. But hey, you know what? I don't go out with that one too terribly often.
Why did I ask this question?
At least he makes my opinions look mild.
How dare
That's
you?
pretty cool.
Gears of War 2. How dare you?
All right, I have the SS Sniper Wolf quote, if and when you're ready for it.
Great.
Hold on one second. So I will just say, and this isn't controversial, I don't think, coming from me, because I've said it many times. But I think that 343 has made better Halo campaigns than Bungie ever did.
That's pretty controversial.
Yeah, that's controversial. I mean, it's because it's wrong. It's what makes the controversy.
It's not wrong.
Well, then
You
then you're
definitely
the
don't
most
want to debate
wrong
me on Halo
person here,
campaigns,
Hogue.
Hogue.
Yeah.
All right.
If
What do we got for this ridiculous quote that you're
Yeah,
about
tell
to
me
share
about
with
this
us?
SS officer that had something to say on Twitch.
Okay, this is a quote from the FTC complaint. This is a legally filed document that is talking about a Twitch streamer that has been paid by the people that make Genshin Impact to open loot boxes. And she remarked, says the FTC, "We are getting way too lucky tonight. I thought we were going to be here all night, but the RNG, it's random number generator, bussin', indicating her unexpected luck that Genshin Impact had purportedly dispensed the rare prize to her by random chance." They're going to accuse him of fraud as part of this. But I just really enjoy that the FTC, a government agency, puts that quote in. I've never seen bussin' in a legal document before, and then says, "Here's what this means, court of law." I thought that was amusing.
You're gonna see it a whole lot. There's gonna be a lot of bussin' v, bussin' v Alabama. You're gonna see a lot of those.
By the way, I have someone else who had a quote controversial quote I want to share. Eat Fresh Guy says, "My most controversial take is that Breath of the Wild was an average game. It would have been ripped to shreds had it been an Xbox title." That's not controversial. That is a fact.
It is very controversial because I think we have this week proof that Breath of the Wild would not be taken apart if it were an Xbox title.
Oh, I get what you're saying. No, I actually think that's pretty controversial. But the most controversial thing about that comment is the username, Eat Fresh Guy.
Do you think it's Jared?
We all know
Is
what
that
that guy did. That's Jared, dude.
Jared didn't eat fresh. Jared just wanted to lose weight and do other things.
He ate a little too fresh.
Eat Fresh is the brand after that.
He ate fresher than was legal, I must say. Unfortunately.
Hogue said he just wanted to lose weight and do other things.
That's a very look, dude.
Oh God. Okay.
You're right. Things. You know what? That's the most controversial take. Hogue just said that's his most controversial take.
That's great. All right. Let's get into some games. So I'll start with Eternal Strands, and I'll hand this mostly to you, Hogue, because I know we wanted to talk about this. So Alex reviewed this for us over at the Season Gaming side of the house and gave it an 8. Really enjoyed it. I think his drawbacks on it were, I believe he said the opening, the first few hours I think were a little cumbersome, and I think he said some of the combat can be a little clunky at times. But otherwise, he really, really enjoyed it. Was pretty high on it, and he's really excited. I believe it was Yellow Brick Games said that they're doing some tuning to the game to continue to improve it and evolve it, which I know Alex said can only obviously make it better, it seems, which is a pretty respectable score from us. So you said you've been enjoying the hell out of it. Let's hear it.
I certainly did not phrase it in that way.
You did. I saw it. You said, "I effing love this game."
No, he said way worse than that. He went on a tirade. I've never heard the sailor just review.
All right.
It was like that SpongeBob episode where it's all like dolphin speak. Yeah. That was Hogue talking about that episode. Game.
In my opinion, Eternal Strands is an absolute freaking revelation. And I am retroactively angry at Travis for not properly hyping me up about this, even though he flew to Canada to get a first look at this particular game last year.
And then did a month of coverage.
And he said, "This one
he did say it was going to be a whole game."
He said this one looks good, but I was like, yeah, all right, we'll see. But he didn't prepare me for how much I would love this. And I do disagree that the intro is too slow. I actually think it does a fantastic job of getting you invested in a brand new fantasy world, which is a really hard thing to do, right? You see games like last year's Immortals have trouble getting you invested in all of the fake names and new fantasy names and characters in a magical world. This one does such a good job of establishing that you're going into a special place. This is a unique and exciting mystery to solve. These characters are very strongly written. The voice acting is fantastic. And yes, it is not a AAA development. You're not going to confuse it for Veilguard anytime soon. But you're also not going to confuse the writing for Veilguard's writing. It is much stronger than what Veilguard put out on the table, but it does have that BioWare feel. In fact, we're going to talk about the news item about BioWare later in this episode. But one of the things that have been floating through my head to make a video of this week was something along the lines of BioWare is dead, long live BioWare, because the dynamism of the industry of people making video games and going and making their own thing is so alive and so obvious in Yellow Brick Games that they have immediately shot into the lead of companies that I'm going to follow into the future. They made this in 4 or 5 years, and they are capable of so much, and such a brilliant design of taking these ideas from Breath of the Wild, taking these ideas from Monster Hunter, taking these ideas from board games and other places where you have to be really efficient with your resource allocations on a development level in order to give players a wide feeling game. And it all comes together so well that I cannot speak highly enough about it. It is easily, as of February 2nd, my game of the year 2025 so far. But I want people to try this game because it is fantastic. It is reasonably priced, even if you're not playing it on Game Pass, which you can. And if you're at all interested in fantasy role-playing games or action games, you are going to enjoy yourself. Now, I do think it could use like one more notch of polish on the actual action. It is a little bit, I wanted to originally say clunky when I started the game. It's not really clunky so much as it's just not as tight as you're expecting from modern action games.
Sure.
But all of the world building, all of the character building, all of the stuff that you're doing is well motivated, keeps you moving in a direction throughout its running time. And I love elegance. You can see how they built this with the limited number of people that they did. And in such a brilliant way. I love seeing all of this, the kind of fruit born from Breath of the Wild as a design element, and seeing that kind of percolate throughout the video game industry is fantastic. There's so much of the Immortals Phoenix Rising series, or I guess it wasn't a series. It was going to be a series, but game type in this, which
Gods
was,
and Monsters.
Itself a Breath of the Wild game. Yeah. So I love this. I think Alex did a great job reviewing it. He came down a little bit harder on some of the things in this game than I do, but that's fine. That's well within acceptable parameters on these things. I probably would have it as a 9, but I really love this. I recommend it to anybody interested in it. Everybody I've shown it to in my house enjoys it, and there's really very little else I have to say about it other than this was an absolute revelation for me this week, and it reminds me of why I like video games.
Very well said, sir. Yeah, that's great. I haven't played it, so I can't comment, but that's awesome that you're loving it so much. I know Alex is really enjoying it, and as we said, so it's great. And you're right. So I was quickly looking up while you were talking because I couldn't remember how big Yellow Brick Games was. So it says right on their site, there's 68 people total, the whole studio. And they also self-published this game, which is probably why they ended up with a Game Pass deal, right? It just makes sense for a smaller studio, first-time game trying to do something like that. So I wish them all the success in the world. If I remember correctly, if I'm not mixing up my people, this is Mike Laidlaw, right?
Yeah, it's Laidlaw.
Okay.
Yep.
So, yeah, I mean, you're right. And this is... There you go. But this, Travis, I know you speak a lot about this too, but as Hogue said, this is like old BioWare, right? Mike Laidlaw, and kind of like taking the reins and doing something unique and new and fresh, and it results in a very high quality game that's new and different and a new IP, and that's really cool to see in this space.
Yeah, and I don't want to overstate the BioWareness of it because I don't think it has a lot of BioWare DNA. And when I interviewed Laidlaw, it was basically him repeating many times that like this is not a BioWare type game and it doesn't have a lot of BioWare DNA. It actually has more in common with Ubisoft games because the vast majority of their employees are former Ubisoft employees who wanted to work on smaller projects. But you can definitely see that they invested in writers a lot more than you would think that an action game like this would do it. And it shows because, as Hogue points out, the writing is extremely good. So I did get a chance to play this before I started the game I'm currently reviewing, which has taken most of my time. And I got through the first 3 big bosses, creatures, and I played quite a bit. And then my wife is also playing this game a lot and is pretty hooked on it. So perhaps it was because I talked to Alex while he was doing his review or after he did his review or whatever, and he sort of prepped me for thinking that the intro was going to be bad. But I also agree with Hogue that like this game made me super excited to play it like from moment one. Like I did not feel I did not feel the same about the intro as Alex. I was like, oh, this is sick. Like just the level of storytelling, the different art style right off the bat. You're meeting all of your companions, and I feel they do a really good job of introducing you to the whole squad and making you care about them really early on. And then you immediately dive into the wild and start collecting resources and unlocking new powers. And I was just like, I was so ecstatic because when I saw this game over a year ago, the intro was sketch outlines. Like it was like they didn't have any of the cutscenes or anything done with it. They just kind of showed me a sketch outlines as like a slideshow with like an idea of what was going to go there. And a lot of the second boss that's in the game didn't have textures added to it. It was just like a gray blob. So like my version of what I played was basically a kind of an idea of what they wanted to build and what they were hoping they were going to be able to accomplish. And at the time, they had just lost their publisher, Private Division, which is why they self-published. But Private Division went through financial troubles and had to drop a bunch of their clients, and one of them was this one. And so they kind of found their back against the wall and weren't sure what their distribution plan was going to be. And so I am ecstatic to see that they got it across the finish line and that it's a pretty good game from what I can tell. I've not played it as much as people who have reviewed it, but it made a hell of an impression on me in the first 3 to 5 hours, and I am actively excited about going back and finishing it once I wrap up this review. And I'm super impressed with it. I think the big creature boss fights turned out better than I thought they were going to do, and seeing a game a year before it comes out, this was like a team I was rooting for, but you're never really sure if they're going to make it. I've done a lot of previews where I'm really excited about a game and then it just doesn't come together, and then I have to write a bad review for it. If I had had the opportunity to review this game, I think I would have been excited about the fact that I didn't have to do that, because it's really nice to see like, oh, they came together, they did it, good for them.
I was going to ask you, Travis, actually, I don't know what IGN's rules are on this. Do they try to keep the person that does the first look off the review, or was this just somebody else wanted to do this review in particular?
I don't know if they have a specific strategy to it, but I have noticed that usually when I preview a game, I don't review it. There's some exceptions though. Like I reviewed Remnant 2 and I did the IGN first like 6 months before that. So okay. I think it just was who was available. I think I was working on some other big game review at the end of December that I can't even remember now. It might have been Aloft. I think I had that code in the middle of December. But this was a game where they gave the code to us really early. It was like the week before Christmas. And Tom was going to review it and then got busy. And then Mitch Saltzman was like, hey, I'm not working on anything. Like, do you need me to hop on something? And he reviewed that game. So, yeah, I didn't get it. And I don't think I was particularly in the running for it, but probably just timing more than anything.
That's really all I wanted to know. I didn't know whether there was some kind of, if you're going to go and fly out and do the first look for a month, that we're going to try to keep you out of the review process or not.
Yeah, I don't think there is. I can't think of a reason that there would be, but yeah, I've sometimes reviewed games I previewed, but it doesn't happen too often. I think you would have to get like lucky for that to happen, or specifically request it and have a lot of clout, which I frankly don't have. So,
well, I absolutely adore this. I adore really this game. The magic is real. It's super cool. The elements all interact with each other. The actual gameplay of running around and collecting resources is great. The crafting ideas they have in this game feel new and novel in different ways. They change the way your stuff looks. They also change how it operates. And I love so many of the systems that kind of interact with each other in this game, as well as fighting big bosses. I'm actually the opposite of you, Travis, which is to say I was expecting that the big Shadow of the Colossus fights would be the focus of this game. There's actually so much more in this game than I knew in terms of actually interacting with the smaller creatures, the collection aspects of it all, and then going back and fixing up your base and talking to everybody. And that's really where I think the BioWare of it lives. I do think there's more BioWare DNA in it than you're giving it credit for, or that Mr. Laidlaw was, which is to say that strong characterization, everybody having a conversation to have after any major event happens. That's some of the stuff that I love in BioWare games, of the reflecting on what the journey has been. And this does that from the get-go and continues it through its running time, at least as far as I've been, which is 10 plus hours. So I really, really love this. And I think people that love that old school BioWare approach, if you think something like a Jade Empire, KOTOR, that kind of thing that doesn't maybe have as much dynamism or romancing options. I don't think there are any romancing options in this game as modern BioWare, then you're going to have fun with it. And I love that it gives you these little messages that explain how its systems work as it goes along at the beginning, establishing that you're just setting up your character personality and like there are no wrong answers. And it does a lot of things that I would like to know more about systems in kind of bigger, more AAA games as I go along and not have to go read a wiki and figure things out. So I think they do a great job of communicating with the player the whole time. Yes, it is not as polished as the giant games. There are things like textures popping in as it does quick changes in camera views and whatnot. All things that I'm used to as a player of indie games pretty regularly, but that might annoy some folks more than others. But the art is gorgeous. It is that what I consider World of Warcraft or large pauldrons type art. Reminds me of Kingdoms of Amalur or that kind of look. But it's gorgeous. It's fun to play. It's continually moving forward. And the writing from the start makes you excited about this place you've never heard of before because you've never played Eternal Strands before. But it makes you excited about things because the characters are excited about them. And it's such a strong way of writing these things. And I wish every game had that in it. But it is clear to me that there was a focus on making you excited to play this game, writing the characters like that. And I'm so happy to have gotten the chance. And yes, I did play it on Game Pass. I love it so much. It's one of those types of Game Pass games where I consider buying it on other platforms. So check it out, folks. Please do. I think Season Gaming gave it an 8. I think IGN gave it a 7. I would give it a 9, but that's all within kind of the consecutive range. So check it out. Let us know next week how much you love it, how much you agree with Hogue. I love to hear from you. If you disagree with me, you don't have to pop in, but you can. And really play this game. Play this game.
I was looking through Open Critic just to kind of see where everyone landed on this. So it's sitting at a
70s, I assume.
75. Weird mix of comments on this game. So there's like 9s out there, and then there's like Game Mag gave it a 5. Oh, you're gonna love this. Eternal Strands is a pretty and yet shallow game that is better left ignored unless you absolutely don't have anything else to play. What kind of writing is this? This other site says some baffling design decisions, lackluster writing, and melee combat that doesn't click.
Lackluster writing is a crazy.
Yeah, I don't know. But then there's 9s on here too that really rave about it. A lot of 8s. I think there's a couple big sites like GameSpot gave it a 6 that I think pulled it back down into the 70s. But there's a lot of 8s. And
6 seems pretty harsh.
Yeah. So anyway,
then again, I haven't played the end of the game, and I know that how game development works. They probably spent the least time on the end, which sometimes means that you get this little worse. So I don't want to speak on it too definitively because I have not finished the game, but I actually I went from thinking this would not be an Ains game, which I think you said immediately when I did the IGN first reveal, but I think you might actually like it, Ains. It's pretty good.
Okay, I'll at least check it out.
I will say the inventory, they do a few things that, like so well, but I hate how small the inventory is. Even though you can upgrade it, it really has been bothering me. You're just constantly dropping items.
You're
But
supposed to start evaluating what you're picking up, Travis. It's
yeah,
a kind of
I don't like
standard
that.
board game technique.
Don't let me do that. I don't want to do it. And I will say the way that they do crafting is so good because they let you craft any item, and then at any point you can destroy it and get every single resource back. And so it kind of encourages you to experiment and craft random stuff, and you're not like hoarding all of your materials for the entire game and never spending them like I always do in these sorts of games. So that has been super cool. But yeah, there's so many crafting materials and you have to drop them all the time. I don't want to drop them. Okay, let me carry them.
You do not have to drop them all the time. I would like to correct this notion. You do have to be somewhat selective in picking up every gray item that you see on the ground and not doing that. But they do some really smart things, including that stacks all count as one spot. So you can get the same thing as many times as you want while you're out there on an expedition. And also when you bring things back to camp, you have infinite inventory. So you don't have to be selective when you're actually in the crafting environment. And then you can convert any resource that you want into various versions of supplies to improve your camp. So they've got like these systems nested on each other that are really, really wonderful and really smart in the same way that a lot of indie games are smart about making roguelike games or deck building games and doing things with the resources they have to make things feel big. They did a great job with this crafting. I love that the materials that you use change the look of the various things. You're not just picking from a palette.
Yeah,
for
that
how
part's
you look.
really cool. Yeah.
And it makes you evaluate a bunch of different kind of axes of what you want to build to survive these particular conflicts. But honestly, you can have as much heat resistance as you want. If you can't figure out how to dodge some of that fire, you're not going to make it. So it's fun at every level of this game. And you're going to care about why you're beating that dragon or not.
Yeah, it's mostly just that like the thing that you will do if you're a hoarder is every time your inventory fills up, you will just go back to your base, drop it off, and then get back into the world. And the end result of that is that it makes the pacing weird because you keep going back to your place and depositing all your goods. And so myself and D have both had that experience where we're just like, man, they really want you to go back to your base like all the time, or we're playing the game wrong. And I think if that's the instinct, I think a lot of people have that instinct of like, well, I better just run back to the base then and drop off all this stuff. And so I think if it were up to me, I would have made the inventory bigger or made fewer items, different items to have to carry around, just somehow consolidated them in some way. But it's a game with crafting, so they're gonna have their materials crazy.
You've always hated going back to town. We've talked about this in Diablo Land. I think that makes things feel like an expedition. One of the things they try to establish in Eternal Strands is that you are journeying out, you are sallying forth from your camp, you're exploring, you're collecting these resources, and you're going back. So part of making that the fantasy is making constraints on your need to go back. And so, Travis, you disagree with that as a fantasy you want to live or a concept that you like in video games. That's totally fine.
Yeah.
That's not going to work for everybody. But I think that is definitely why those mechanisms are in place. I think it works a trick to do that.
Yeah. I'll never agree with the inventory space thing. I want to make Spoon die.
Well, that is Eternal Strands. I think we've said enough. You can go try it for yourself on Game Pass. Obviously, it's available on PlayStation and PC as well if you don't have Game Pass. But yeah, some good reviews out there and seems to be a good hit. Congrats to Yellow Brick Games on the seeming success anyway. I hope it does well for you.
We should remember them for best debut game. Like this has got to be it, I think. And there's always surprises out there, but I think this should be on the short list.
This has got to be it. We got 11 months left, man.
Do we?
I mean, how many other studios are planning on releasing their debut game this year?
But we had no idea Bellatra was a game.
Yeah, I have no idea, but there's got to be some.
We know some. We know the Expedition 33 is the debut game, right? From that studio.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, so we got that one. But I was counting them a couple days ago, and I was like, I don't think there's going to be that many debut games. We have a lot of known quantities, and usually if there's some debut game that hasn't come out yet. We usually have some inkling that some studio's working on something.
I mean, there's still an off chance that Exodus comes out this year.
You keep thinking that.
I'm just saying that we don't know the environment of debut games. We have no idea when that game's releasing. We don't know what Balatros are out there. We don't know what's going to be a debut game. But I agree that this should be on the nomination list. It's
Balatros
fantastic.
are pretty rare. Those types of games don't come out very often.
I don't think Balatros are very rare. You got Balatro, you've got your Slay the Spire a couple of years back. You've got these games.
A couple of years.
Yeah.
That was a long time ago.
Well, I mean, Balatro was last year. So you see,
Yeah.
a couple of years is really the next window.
You guys are debating something we still have 11 months to sort out. So
all I'm saying is Eternal Strands is my game of the year right now as of February 2nd.
That's
anyway,
funny.
on that.
Yeah, Slay the Spire was 2017. It's quite a while ago.
Okay, well, I was just thinking of things that were big debuts.
Just saying.
Moving on, fellas. One thing I forgot to do at the start of the show. So before I talk about Tales of Iron 2 and my review on that game, we forgot Tide's picks, guys. And
yeah, we did.
Tide's picks are something that we asked her to do for us this week. And she came through in spades with what might be my favorite pick of all time that she's done.
Uh-oh.
So, ready? Yes.
What are we?
Bikers?
We're bikers?
We're us. I mean, what do you mean? That's us.
This is just the cast of Days Gone 2.
That's not even AI picks. I mean, that's just us, different outfits, of course, but
God, why am I always so aggressively ginger? I don't get it.
I'm just curious as to
I'm not ginger at all. Like, I don't have any red hair, like not even one.
What were the parameters of your request, Ains?
Like tattoos.
Tattoos.
Oh,
right.
tattoos. Yeah. And then they just made us bikers, I guess.
That's just what the AI thinks of people with tattoos.
Yeah, by the way, we're writing, based on those bars in front of us, we're writing bicycles. We're writing bicycles. We're not riding motorcycles at all. Those are for sure. I might be on a tricycle based on how small those bars are.
I look like the meanest paperboy you've ever seen.
Yeah, you look like you're going to sweep some chimneys and make me fall in love with you.
Well, that's just true.
I like that the tattoo design supposedly on my arms just blends right into my shirt.
Wait, where?
I mean, it's just like it looks like it used the same thing on my shirt as it did my arms. It's just like one giant tattoo.
You just went to the tattoo parlor and didn't take your shirt off.
By the way, you did not roll your sleeves up. You just bunched your shirt up. Look at the folds there. You just bunched it. It's like not a cool look at all. At least my sleeves are like, I think they're cutoffs.
Yeah.
God, that's a horrifying look for me. I should never get tattoos. I look like Jared Leto. I hate it.
You look like super lean, and it looks like you've broken your nose about 4 or 5 times.
Okay, but that's actually accurate.
Like, there is enough space for a damage tattoo on your forehead there.
Yeah, I need a damage tattoo on that forehead for sure.
Oh my god!
I wonder if the AI has noticed that my nose has been broken a bunch, because that is a good shout. And like yeah.
As a hockey player, I'm used to that look. I see that a lot. So yeah. That's hilarious. Thank you, Tide. As always, I have not broken my nose. No,
there we go. Let's do Broken Bones. That's a great lore dump.
I can compete in that space.
Let's go, Ains. Let's talk about Broken Bones.
Broken my arm.
Does your nose count as a bone? I don't even think it does.
I thought it does. Broken my arm. Full arm. Broke my ribs twice.
At what point? Say when.
Here.
Below
that's
the elbow. A tough one. The forearm.
Ooh, yeah, forearm.
Brutal one.
Broke my ribs twice. Broken my leg, and broken my foot.
Okay, what was the most nar? Which one which was the most nar binks?
Ribs is not fun.
Yeah, ribs is also not fun.
And those popped on the ice while I was playing.
Wait, were all of them hockey related?
No. Ribs, both ribs and my leg were hockey.
And your forearm?
My foot was my forearm was when I was younger. I fell off a wall like 20 feet.
Sick.
That's it. I literally fell off a high wall walking along it and broke my arm. And then my foot was weightlifting.
Forearm? Oh, well, that was the falling off.
Falling off was my arm.
Yourself?
Yeah, I landed on my arm. Yeah.
That'll
and
do
then
it.
my foot was
all right, Ho, give us the I've never broken a bone answer. We're ready.
Well, there was that one time I had my skull drilled into. I don't know if that counts.
No, it doesn't count at all.
You're I also cracked open my skull.
Does that count? Are we counting skull cracking?
It should. Skull's crack. I mean, yeah,
that's a bone.
Hoke had his drilled. I mean, he took a shortcut. I cracked it the old fashioned.
Also, he had like pain med, doctors.
Yeah, he's in a hospital. Come on.
I was unconscious.
That's weak shit, dude. It's weak.
Otherwise, I have not broken a bone, Travis. That's true.
Yeah, I knew it, dude. All right, I'm with Ains. I've broken a bunch of bones. All my toes are broken. I broke my nose twice, which is why it's pretty. I mean, yeah, dude.
You've got the ridge. Yeah,
I got the ridge here, and then it's also broken in here. If you look up my nose, you will see all flesh in one nostril. It's
we don't need to demonstrate that.
I forgot to do that while I was there. Next time,
I should have shown you. It's pretty gnarly. I've also broken a rib in a fight, and I broke my shoulder in an improv scene, and I also broke my foot in half on a play. I was doing a play, and there's like this moment where I piss off the cast, and we do like this thing where we're running around, and then I run through a door and I close it, and then they all like pile up on it cartoonishly. And one time during a performance, I didn't get my foot through, and they all piled on the door and just snapped my foot right in half. Pretty brutal. But yeah, I've broken a bunch of bones.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. We got a good it was a good time.
We got a good mix. We got two people with hard lives, and then this wimp who's just had his skull opened like a casual.
The word
dude,
not to stay on it, but dude. I was the first rib one was I was on the boards in hockey, and someone hit me from behind, and I heard a pop, and I didn't know what it was.
Oh man.
Yeah, I heard a pop, so I go to the bench, and I'm like, damn, I think I strained something, and I just kept playing. So then I end up going to the doctor. I'm like, something's not right. And he's like, broken rib. I was like, well, what do I do? He's like, nothing. There's nothing you can do for it. He's like, we can wrap it. It doesn't do shit. So he's like, just deal with it.
Told me.
Yeah. So that was the worst, because like when you have broken ribs, like not only weird movements, all of a sudden it'll feel like someone's literally stabbing a knife into your stomach.
Everything hurts that
bad. But like sneezes or coughs is like you dread them. It's like you can feel your nose and you're like, oh God, no, please don't sneeze. Yeah, ribs suck. Anyway, we're way off topic now. Let me talk about Tales of Iron.
Lore dump.
Yeah, that's lore dump for the week. There you go. People ask for lore dump, you got noise. Travis is supposed to be creating that clip. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we just need a flushing noise.
Yeah, I think we just need a soundboard where we just lore dump flush.
Okay, I'll find one. Tales of Iron 2. So Tales of Iron, if you're not familiar, a little studio out of the UK called Oddbug Studio. They made Tales of Iron 1 back in 2021 or 22. I actually reviewed that one as well. Gave it a pretty good score. I think I gave it an 8. Nice little indie game. Kind of a 2D, tougher combat game, kind of brutal combat type of approach with bosses and armor and loot, and you have to kind of roll through attacks and parry and all that stuff. But it's got a cute little story about it's all based around rats, so they call it the Ratdom as a joke, like a kingdom. And you kind of play this you play this prince who defends the kingdom and whatnot. So the sequel is a direct sequel. It has some ties to the first game. It basically takes place in another region of the world, and they, as you typically do in sequels, they expanded some of the kind of aspects of the game. So there's more loot, there's more crafting, or there's crafting of loot and different armors and weapons. There's more bosses to fight. The world's a little bigger. There's more regions, etc., etc. So I won't stay too long on it. It's give or take about a 12 to 15 hour game, depending on how much you want to do and how much you want to complete. Lot of fun, some funny writing. There's all kinds of rat puns, and there's like, there's references to modern society, which are kind of funny throughout the game. And it's just a good time. If you like those kind of smaller 2D games that give you a little challenge, that give you a little exploration, really good game. I gave it an 8.5. I was kind of in that space. I think it's just under an 80 on Open Critic. I was hoping it would be in the 80s for our Fantasy Critic thing, but It's a good game.
Oh,
Very
is that
good
our
game.
first scored game?
Yes, it was 78. I think
I
it is
shouldn't
on
have trusted
OpenCritic.
you with that one.
Well, the first one was an 83, and this is a better game than the first one. So I don't know if it's just difference in reviewers, timing, who knows? You know what I mean? That those things vary a lot. But
People
regardless,
just are over rats, dude. They hate the rats.
but good game. I believe Hogue, we were talking before the show that it's I think it's $25, I believe.
It is, yes.
Game. Okay.
And this was a situation where I enjoyed the first one, but I don't know whether speaks to the reviews or not, but I didn't feel like I desperately needed more Tales of Iron. And so this sequel being $25 was one that it was pretty easy for me to pass up when I had Eternal Strands and Citizen Sleeper 2, which we'll talk about coming through Game Pass. So I know lots of people talk about Game Pass and whether it cannibalizes sales, and we're usually talking about that with respect to the games themselves. Like you won't have to buy Eternal Strands or Citizen Sleeper 2. But in this particular case, I didn't want to spend the money on Tales of Iron 2 this week because I had so much content that I was really enjoying through the subscription service already. So outside of this particular release week, Tales of Iron 2 might have gotten purchased by me even at $25. But as it stands right now, I have not purchased this game, even though I had heard good things, even though I enjoyed the first one, which is a part of the new world order for video games with subscription services and the way we actually buy these things. So I feel bad for them. I know you liked it, Ains. I know you liked the first one, but in general, and you did yeoman's work avoiding this term, but in general, I don't need more Souls-like experiences. And Tales of Iron was a two-dimensional Soulsy game. Oh, it is. It's a Soulsy game.
I don't really like calling it that. It's got parry and you have to roll through attacks on a 2D screen, but you don't lose anything when you die. There's no leveling, so you're not beating enemies and having to fight them again.
Sounds like an action game.
Yeah, there's none of that. There's no skill system that you're building into. So, I mean, it's. I think we've talked about that. I think that word gets.
It gets used too much. There's no question, but it is certainly in the bucket in my head as that is a Soulsy experience. You're going to die a lot. Maybe I die more than you, Ains. When you said it was 12 to 15 hours, depending on how much you do, I wanted to add, and also how well you play, how much you can get through, because I died a lot in Tales of Iron 1.
Yes, that is true. The good thing about this one is there are 3 difficulty levels. And I tried all 3. I think I called that out in my review. So there is like a story-based one. It makes things substantially easier. You can really kind of plow through the bosses. The normal difficulty is still challenging as it was in the first one. And then there is I think they call it Bloody Whiskers setting, which is very hard. I also called it the Ratcher is just a joke because it's like this one, there's traps. There are things like poison and fire and electricity and stuff. So there's like elemental damage and defense in this one too. So it's a little more complex, So if you're going up against the big bosses or hunts, they actually call them in this game, funny enough, you kind of have to plan those situations more. On the lower difficulty levels, you don't, or lower difficulty level, you don't, whereas the harder one is you definitely need to prepare. So you can kind of adjust it a little more than the first one, I think, too.
And speaking of puns, if you do go looking for this game, you're going to want to spell tails like rat tails, not like story tales.
Correct. Yep.
Or you could call it whatever you want. Don't let the man control you, dude.
Well, you're going to have a harder time finding it if you use the different word.
I think that's fine, dude. You live your truth.
Okay.
Live your truth. The only other kind of neat thing for anyone who hasn't played this game, it's just a neat thing, is that Doug Cockle he narrates the game as a voiceover. Who, if you're not familiar with his name, he's the
Geralt.
voice of Geralt from Witcher. So, and he's got that kind of gritty, gruff. He plays into that. So, having that as narrated, kind of like a storybook tale, kind of cool. If you like.
Not familiar with The Witcher, but I do know Doug Cockle from Blues and Bullets.
Okay.
You could even say that without laughing.
I couldn't. I really tried to.
But anyway, check it out. My review's up. You can check that out too.
It's a really cool art style. I really like the thick black outlines on all of 2D art.
Would you call me?
It's a good art looking game.
Yes, and the second one expands upon that. Good art looking game.
Why don't you write reviews, Hogue? I don't get it.
I could never write as many silly puns as you can squeeze into the first paragraph, Travis.
That's too bad. More people.
The art direction is really strong, and it's even better in this one than the first because there's more regions. So there's a full time of day cycle, and they play with different. You go to winter, you go to snowy areas and castles and stuff. So it's cool. Before we talk, we got a couple other games to talk about. Let me catch up on some super chats here. Commander Shepard is back on the Citadel, of course, hanging out with us.
Commander Shepard offers me €5 from his London HQ of Earth headquarters and writes, "My name is Commander Shepard, and BioWare is my connection to Citadel Network Lost." Oh, I see.
Took you a
I
second.
love that Travis doesn't read ahead at all, so it's all news to him.
Yeah, it's all news to me. He was cut off by the Citadel, presumably because he was laid off.
Yeah, Commander Shepard has been let go.
Commander Shepard has been reapportioned to other Electronic Arts activities.
Yes.
You'll just see him on FIFA.
Wouldn't Commander Shepard be the only one they wouldn't lay off? Really?
No, Commander Shepard is now running EA Originals.
Sweet.
He will be making an appearance in.
Honestly, that might be a better use of his for time.
Oh man, Shepard, thank you as always, and thank you for your service. Console Peasant is here.
Console Peasant offers $5.99, which is a lot of money in peasant dollars, to write, "You deserve more views."
Thank you.
I agree. I do.
Give all your views to Travis, folks.
Yeah, give all your views to me. I need them. I'm starting a collection.
Thank you, as always, for the support. I agree, but spread the word. Help us out. Don, what's happening, my friend?
Don Lionheart, $5 super chat. That's a way to join a podcast. An up close examination of Travis's nose. Laughing, smiling face. Rolling on the floor, laughing face. Morning all. Just awoke. Played Avowed until 6 a.m. Got to get this done. Very
get it done.
I'm also playing Avowed.
Yeah, I was going to say we can't talk about it, obviously, but Don is reviewing Avowed for SG. Travis is reviewing Avowed as well. So, we got a little while so we can talk about that. But
also
it is
for
in progress.
SG. It's a new thing.
Also,
doing.
yes,
competing reviews.
Yeah, IGN's not going to have one. They will both be at SG.
Yeah. It's going to be really cool.
Nice. If you could give us your views just for like a day, we'd appreciate it. I mean, come on.
Actually, IGN used to do a thing a long time ago where they would do dueling reviews. They would get 3 people to write reviews who had different opinions of games, which is such a confusing thing to do at a company, but they did it for a while just for fun, just to see what would happen.
Well, that used to be how GamePro operated. You get the 4 different review numbers in the little boxes.
And EGM.
Very confusing to a reader, as it turns out, based on feedback.
EGM. Yes.
EGM, yeah. The best was when EGM, a lot of times they were kind of aligned, right? But the best is when one person would give it a 9 and one would give it a 3, and you're like, what the hell happened here?
Yep. It would be 9, 9.5, 9.5, and you'd be like, all right, talk to me.
Yeah. But back then, it was just you had no other context. There was no other thing other than that score and the one paragraph. That was it. So. Don, thank you very much. Yes, get back to work. Come on, get on that.
He cracks the whip here.
Haynes is cracking the whip.
We were giving him crap because we got to code and he had minor things like his anniversary with his girlfriend, stupid stuff. Just getting in the way.
Get over it, dude.
I know. Get
if you
to work.
Still have a life, you are not cut out for this industry.
I know. I don't. It's getting him in shape. We're getting there. It's a work in progress. Cherry Mills member on the Hogue side for 24 months. Thank you, Cherry.
Thank you, Cherry.
All right, let's get back to it. So another game came out on Game Pass this week. It is very, very highly regarded in the critical space. I have played it for all of about 20 minutes, so I'm not going to comment on it. But Mr. Hogue has, and he is playing Citizen Sleeper 2, which I'm hearing is fantastic.
I am. Citizen Sleeper, when it originally came out, was one that I only played because it was on Game Pass, but it is essentially a kind of adventure game, visual novel type pastiche where you've got a lot of writing and you roll dice occasionally and you assign those dice to various things that then run a random number generator and decide whether it was a success or failure. You're a consciousness in a robot body in various places in space. This one is a little bit more dynamic, a little bit more adventuresome than the first one. But
adventuresome.
Yes, that's the
Another
basics
fantastic word
of the premise. Adventuresome is a word.
Yeah. We're learning a lot of great words today.
I appreciate it.
Adventuresome,
Carry on.
the Soulsy genre, when Souls likes just won't do.
That's right. In any event, Citizen Sleeper 2 is exactly what you would expect from a sequel to Citizen Sleeper, I would say. It is available on Game Pass. Its writing, like the first one, is a little bit much. It's trying very hard to be very fancy. We'll say that. So
fancy.
it has that Disco Elysium kind of.
I was just gonna say what I've played of it made me think of Disco Elysium, where it just feels overextended with what it's trying to say and move you along. But
yes,
amazing.
No, it has that junior poet writing for the high school book kind of feel to it. It is good. I like it. I enjoy it, but it is trying very, very hard. And some might be turned off by that particular type of writing. But I like the gameplay elements, the resource management. You have to manage your energy and your stress level and what your dice can do and what your character can do with those specific dice. And different characters have different additions or subtractions that they do to the dice totals. And so if you like any of that, it is kind of a hand management, resource management adventure game with heavy visual novel kind of aspects to it. So I like it because I like hard sci-fi. It's got all the kind of weird space music sounds that you would like out of these kinds of things. It is dealing with some cool kind of hard sci-fi. What does it mean to be human? What does it mean to be a person kind of concepts? But in my opinion, it is slightly overwritten.
Gotcha.
Adventure some sounds more like adventure lots. Am I right?
It's very good. I like it. It's just, even for me, who can deal with a certain amount of kind of pretentious writing, it is a lot.
I say go off. More pretentious writing.
Yeah, I
want
started
not even be
playing
able to I want to have to get my thesaurus out to understand what you're saying.
I started playing it at like nearly 1 a.m. the other night, and I'm like, I can't do this right now. This is too much. So I'll see if I go back to it. But it's very highly reviewed. I think it's like high 8s on OpenCritic.
So what you're saying is we should have chosen that instead of Tales of Iron 2.
Correct.
You fool.
You fool.
Look what you've done to us.
But yeah, it's out on Game Pass as well. Game Pass, I mean,
you're out on
doing a good start to the beginning of the year here. That's for sure.
No, this is a strong week for Game Pass.
You're out on
because there was another game that came out that I haven't actually tried yet. It was a sniper game.
Sniper Elite Resistance, I believe.
That came out on Game Pass as well. It was a good week for Game Pass.
Yep. And Ninja Gaiden Black or Gaiden. See, I'm still saying Gaiden. Ninja Gaiden Black as well.
We know why you're saying Gaiden. Am I right? Am I right? We know why. We know why.
All right. So, yeah, like I said, too, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth on PC. I know Spider-Man 2 came out on PC as well. A few of the guys at SG were doing an analysis on Final Fantasy VII Rebirth on PC. They kind of teamed up on it. So Alex was playing it, Peter was playing it, Steve was playing
Alex
it.
was playing it? That's really surprising.
It's shocking, I know. So they combined and did kind of analysis across multiple PCs and PS5 Pro as well, and did an article on that, so you can check that out, which is pretty cool. But anything else, guys, in the games you want to talk about before we move to our major topic around Xbox?
I have one that I want to mention, but I'm worried that Travis and Ains will have a lot more to say about this game than I will. So I'm just going to throw it out there. One of the things that I have played a lot this weekend with my daughter is a game called Hello Kitty Island Adventure.
Yeah, I have a
you notice how he said with his daughter, right?
Well,
yeah. You don't have
I
to
didn't
use
have
her
the
as a
controller,
cover, dude. You don't use the guys as a cover. We get it. You were playing this game.
There's nothing not to love about Hello Kitty and her friends trying to make it through an island adventure, folks. But if you don't know this game, this was originally an app arcade game, the Apple service, and they brought it over to consoles. So it's a mobile port, but it's essentially an Animal Crossing game with more of a focus on like questing over like terraformation of the island. And my daughter loved this so much yesterday when we played it that she actually drained the batteries out of our Pro controller and we had to stop that particular session of the game at only 7 hours or so. And she's very excited to play it and is upset that I'm recording this video and we can't be playing it right now.
She
Wow.
drained the batteries, by the way. So
She did.
the battery fuel went into her. She just absorbed the energy.
Yes, yeah. She
was
does.
so excited to be playing Hello Kitty.
Bounces off the walls.
Yeah.
You said the Pro controller, the Switch. You play on Switch?
Yeah. No, I'm playing it
Okay,
on
dude.
Switch. We only
Gotta
ever use
play.
the Pro controller to play on Switch.
Yeah.
Switch
No,
Switch is the home of Hello Kitty. Come on, guys. That's
yeah.
where you got it. That's where I play all my Hello Kitty games as any.
Yeah.
But I do want to say that this game is cool. I think it's probably overpriced for a mobile port. It was $40. Same price as Eternal
Wow.
Strands. If you have
He didn't
$40, I would buy Eternal Strands first. I would.
He didn't
but
even buy his kid the deluxe edition for $60. It's like he doesn't.
I
love
did
them.
not buy the
Crazy.
mobile port deluxe edition. No.
So I get
But
it.
don't
It's
tell
fine.
my daughter.
Yeah.
In any event, it is a good game. It's bigger than I thought it would be. It doesn't have, as you would hope for $40, the microtransactions and things that we saw on the phone version of this game.
Sure.
So it's a different type of game in that format. But if you like Animal Crossing, if you like, doing easy tasks for cute characters in a little town on an island, you're gonna like this one, I think.
They're not cute.
Okay.
They're serious business. Tuxedo Sam is a menace.
Tuxedo
society.
Sam has a cute little dance he does while he's just standing there. Both of my daughters were super excited about this. Very cute, very enjoyable.
Here's
lot
a
of-
pop quiz for you. What's the fish who's a stand-up comedian?
I can't pronounce it. We were just talking to him yesterday. He's like, it's like orangutan. I don't. It starts with an H.
Yeah, it does. It's like hangy something.
Yeah,
Okay.
no, he had a whole sequence of conversation points about how he's a comedian on a cruise ship, and then he writes a joke for you.
Comedians on cruise ship famously are the most talented comedians.
I can say it's delightful in terms of dialogue, and it's cute and all these various things. I like cozy games. One of the things I wanted to say that I forgot to say is that Eternal Strands in structure is actually a kind of cozy game, except that the farming is killing monsters. And so it has that kind of cozy game vibe of building up your base and talking to people constantly and making friends. And then you go out and get the craft materials and come back with them. It has that kind of cozy game approach with a decent combat engine and cool magic. And that's one of the reasons I like it as much as I do. But check out Hello Kitty Island Adventure if any of that sounds good to you. But certainly it's been a very big success in Hogue House.
Okay. Sard asks, how time gated is it? That's probably for me in whatever AC means.
It's a problem in Animal Crossing, right? Because Animal
Animal
Crossing does the real 24-hour days. This doesn't do that, but it does only allow you to give 3 presents to each friend per day. And so, because the items and blueprints that you're going to get for the various things that you can do on the island are coming from your friendship levels, it is at least a little bit time gated for when you've run out of people to give presents to.
Yeah,
That's
you
why
had
you
me
have to
until that point.
So you have to give me your presents, not your presents. You know
It doesn't seem oppressive in its time gating right now, and there are items that you can get. They're bouquets of flowers that reset the amount of gifts that you can give to people. But yes, Sarnisms, it is closer to Cozy Grove than Animal Crossing in terms of timing.
Yeah. Well, I think it
Okay.
is oppressive, and I think that should be on the box art. Hello Kitty Island Adventure. Oppressive. In quotes.
Oppressive. It's oppressive.
I really liked it. I was surprised at how big the island is. I was surprised at how much stuff there is to do, how many mini games it has, how many things to interact with. It is more of a quest-based game, more puzzles, more dungeons than Animal Crossing. And I really liked those kinds of elements.
Would you
in this
say
game.
that it is
Okay.
Island Adventuresome or Island Adventure Many?
I would say it is Hello Kitty Island Adventure, available now on your Switch for $40 American.
I dodged the question.
dollars.
Typical politician.
Well, there you go. I didn't expect to be talking about that today. I have a lot of thoughts on the game, but I'm going to save them. Hope pretty much.
There are a
covered.
lot of thoughts in the game.
Yeah, exactly.
Both
Exactly.
Travis and Ains have undoubtedly beaten and maybe reviewed Hello Kitty Island Adventure.
I actually
Yes.
100%ed it on
Yeah,
all platforms.
mine's unlisted, but if you hunt for it, you can find it. Yeah. Moving on to our main topic. So, want to talk a little bit about Xbox today, boys, because
Of course you do.
yeah, we got a little bit of news this week. Forza Horizon 5, one of the highest rated first party games for Xbox, and one of the most successful first party games for Xbox, is headed to PlayStation 5 this spring. No specific date yet, but they are developing this. Playground Games is working with Panic Button on co-development to bring this to PlayStation. It includes all the updates and expansions, including the Hot Wheels stuff and everything else that's come out since then. Yeah, if you weren't aware of just how successful this game has been, it continues to be in the top about 15 to 20 played every single month on Xbox Live. Does well on Steam. It has, they continue to add content to it in seasonal format. It's a very popular game that is played by a lot of people. So this is obviously going to only expand upon that. But I think obviously the larger discussion here is the continuing expansion of Xbox's publishing strategy for first-party content. So in addition to, and we'll talk about this kind of collectively, but in addition to Forza Horizon being confirmed by Xbox to be going to PlayStation, there's some fresh rumors circulating from the usual characters around a Gears trilogy remaster. So Gears 1 to 3 coming not only for Xbox and PC, but for PlayStation as well. So it seems to be, and obviously we already talked about the rumor, and again, these are rumors, but rumors of Master Chief Collection also eventually heading to PlayStation as well. So there seems to be the broadening strategy of these kind of major tentpole IPs for Xbox, at least the ones that are already out on the Xbox side, maybe not day one, but heading to PlayStation in a broader publishing strategy. So I guess I'll start the commentary there, guys, around, based on what we've seen, this wasn't hugely surprising to me. Do you find it surprising at all, or is this kind of what you expect to see from Xbox going forward?
I think even if you know that there are storms in the area, when you actually see the lightning bolt in front of you, that it's a little bit surprising.
Okay.
So I when I saw this news item, I was like, oh, okay, it's going down now. And I know that you have said for weeks, Ains, that you've heard about Halo potentially coming over and these various other rumors for Microsoft and Xbox on PlayStation. From a business point of view, this is clearly the right call. I mean, the gamers, the market is on PlayStation. And one of the things that I have wanted to say for a while about the Microsoft strategy, the Xbox strategy, is that when these pieces of hardware kind of coalesced around the same structure, that they play the same games, that they operate in the same way outside of cell technology and everything else we saw in previous generations, then there was always going to be essentially a second mover. There was always going to be somebody in second place. And it was never going to make a ton of sense after that kind of win and loss condition had been established for them to continue running the race in second place. So Microsoft has been for years trying to separate itself. And I think people read this Horizon coming over as being Microsoft becoming Sega and only making software and only making games in a publisher basis. I don't think that's the likeliest case from this. I think the likeliest case is that they've given up on this generation. I think that's clear, and that almost everything that they make is likely to come over now. But I don't see Microsoft and Xbox not proceeding with another piece of hardware on the next road. I think what you'll see is it differentiated even more. I think they will move away from this kind of similar DNA of the PlayStation ecosystem and try to say, okay, here's a reason why you would play it over here. I have no idea what that is. I have no idea whether that's some kind of weird piece of hardware like Nintendo would do. It's holograms now. I have no idea. Or some other way of actually rendering the graphics in their video games, the equivalent of a 5090 in their box, and it's $1,000 system, and we call it Xbox Supreme. I have no idea. I know that they're working on that behind the scenes. I suspect that that's where this ultimately goes, is that we exit this dovetailing period for engineering, and they make something on a completely different basis so that you can only really play certain experiences on Xbox rather than anywhere else. But for right now, this generation, yes, this is Xbox giving up on the straight up hardware fight, which I would argue they gave up a couple years ago, but nobody noticed. And now it's more obvious to everybody involved.
I would disagree on the phrasing of they're giving up on the hardware fight. I think they're just giving up on trying to replicate Sony's model, which in my opinion is the right choice. Phil, I think, said again earlier this week that, like, keeping games off of other platforms doesn't work for us, you know, and of course it can't work for you because your player base is way smaller than the other players. But I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I don't view it as a giving up on the generation or on the hardware. I think it's just giving up on the idea of like the walled garden exclusivity, you know, $70 games and that sort of thing, which frankly has not been working for Xbox. So it makes sense that they would pivot. And I think them leaning into their advantages of, you know, cooler tech, the cloud, Game Pass. They probably are going to do timed exclusivity, because my thinking is that if Halo and Forza and the kind of their big tent poles come to PlayStation, they'll probably be treated like PlayStation treats the PC platform, right? Probably a little later, or maybe it'll be same day, and they'll just lean on Game Pass as being like the reason that you would play it on Xbox instead. But yeah, I mean, just this week, was it this week or was it last week that they announced the new hard drive support? Like, they're still developing their platform and their console and their features. They're adding stuff to it. So yeah, I think they're here to play. I just think they've sort of given up on chasing other people's business models, which they should have done a long time ago, frankly.
I think you guys are saying pretty similar things. Yeah, I think I agree with all that. I think that you're right. Everything we know, and I was on Pixelated Echoes with 3-Bit and Jez and PTK and Fuzzy last week too, after Bitcast, and we kind of talked about this a little bit too with some insight. And I've said before on the show that the prevailing rumor at this point in time in the channels, right, is that Xbox introduces new hardware at the tail end of next year, 2026. Now, what seems to be the prevailing rumor at this point, and again, we're talking rumors, but to your guys' point, is that Xbox may go to a place of where they offer a home console, right? So think of a Series X, but then a portable console as well. But those two things come together in an ecosystem way, right? Which is where Xbox has been driving for some time. When you play on PC in Game Pass, or you play on your Series X or S, it's all together, right? You have your save, you have the same game, you have the same access, you have the same connectivity, you have Game Bar on PC, so you can still be in Xbox Live parties. So like when I review a game on Xbox, for instance, or if I was playing Avowed right now, I'd be playing both on my Series X and PC, because it's just very easy to jump between the two. And I think what you're going to see is that continue between PC and console, but console, to Hoag's point, from a technology perspective, will try to differentiate itself in some type of meaningful way. One of the funny things we couldn't agree on that show was like, what is that? You know, what do you foresee? What's a differentiator at this point in time that is going to drive someone new to your ecosystem? And to be quite frank, I don't know. People have asked me that question, and I'm like, look, at this point in time, Nintendo's its own thing. We know that. We talk about that, right? They kind of have their own space. But PlayStation globally, as a brand, as an ecosystem, as an identity, clearly has a power advantage here, right? Not power in terms of power performance, but you know what I mean, in terms of global strength. And I just don't know what Xbox does hardware wise to bring people new to that ecosystem who can't play the games. Game Pass is obviously a differentiator. I think we've talked many times about their banking on that, but I'm very curious to see where Xbox goes with this next generation, to see how they try and differentiate themselves. And if it is an ecosystem that kind of looks like the Switch, but it's two devices, right, instead, or maybe you have a higher end console, to Hoag's point, but then you have a portable console that can be docked and play games kind of like a Series S version. Maybe that's a lower end form factor in performance, something like that. I don't really know, but I'm definitely curious to see where they're going. They have been very clear that they're not leaving the hardware game, which, as someone who still buys every console and everything else and who plays in the Xbox ecosystem primarily, I want to be able to buy an Xbox piece of hardware. So I'm happy for that, but I'm just as curious as the rest of us to see where this heads.
Yeah, well, I mean, differentiation is going to be the name of the game. And I think the most intriguing rumor that I've heard is the dual boot concept for an Xbox, of having a Microsoft operating system that looks like an Xbox and having something that can run Steam, because you are going to cut the legs out of what is right now Sony first party's really only mechanism for making money through software right this second, which is releasing these games on PC. And if you can incorporate those into your own ecosystem without having to enter into a licensing deal with Sony, then you can have a box that can be the best place to play everything, where that's what PlayStation is trying to sell right now in this generation, especially with things like Horizon and anything else that Microsoft brings over to PlayStation. The notion is that why would you buy an Xbox? Because PlayStation already has everything. Sony's unlikely to put their games directly on Xbox. That's fine. But if Microsoft can run Steam, you give PlayStation a very difficult test, which is, do we cut off our PC Steam interface, because that's money in our pockets, in order to not essentially populate our main hardware competitor, or do we just not care about that anymore and we operate in a different space with what we've got on our hardware? And I think Microsoft is looking for a way to do that, right? To put their hardware components in a different space than Sony and PlayStation, but also to make life harder on them. And so I think Horizon is that lightning bolt. It is that kind of indication that Microsoft is moving on from this very similar hardware model, because they're just going to lose on a one-to-one basis every time. And a dual boot, an Xbox Supreme, Xbox Hologram Edition, all of these things are possible in the future, but I don't see them becoming Sega anytime soon. They just spent hundreds of billions of dollars to not do that. I really don't see them going that direction. Even if you were to say that that's a sunk cost, they shouldn't take that into account. That's just not the way human beings work. And so I don't see Microsoft going anywhere anytime soon, and I'm glad for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. The other thing is, Ains, you were saying, like, I don't know how they get new people into the ecosystem. I think the way they do it is just by playing the long game, because, like, I think about young people, and, like, if I were a scrappy poor kid as I was, I think I would be way more inclined to play on Xbox than I would on PlayStation, just because of accessibility. The fact that you can play it on a TV or on your phone, and that a lot of games are available on Game Pass, so you only have to get enough money to afford the subscription service instead of buying all these expensive games and having to pick and choose. And I think on a long enough timeline, with that factor at play, they have like an opportunity to earn like brand loyalty for like the next generation. I just think that it's really hard to reverse it now for like older gamers. And so I do want to point out that tilt is like, we're a bunch of talking heads who have been here for the whole thing. And so like, we have our digital libraries and opinions on this, but like, there's a upcoming generation of people who do not care at all about that, and are probably just going to play on whatever is the cheapest or most available, or that they can play on their phone. And I think PlayStation is losing that fight significantly. And so there's an opportunity that there's like a young people's market that is developing and is eventually going to be its own, it's going to be the future of who are the gamers, that I think maybe is going in a way that we aren't seeing in today's current market.
Yeah, I think that we're again kind of talking over similar points of like playing to Microsoft and Xbox's strengths, right? And your point very clearly is, from an ecosystem and technology perspective, they have the clear advantage. They've built, and I've said this many times on this show, I don't think they get enough credit for it. I don't think they get enough credit for the fact that when you buy a game on Xbox, you can go play it on your PC at max settings on the save and everything. You can play it wherever you want. Whereas PlayStation, you're buying a game, you're waiting a year and then paying full price for the same game on PC. I think things like that are notable.
I was at Tom Marks's house, and there was a kid there who was playing on their phone with the Xbox controller. You can snap your phone onto the little Xbox thing, and they were playing a game on Game Pass through the cloud that they had at home on their console on the same save. And Tom didn't know that you could do that on the Xbox ecosystem, because he plays primarily on PC. He was like, you can do that? You can just pick up your save and play it on your phone? And the kid was like, yeah. And then Tom turned to me and was like, how is Xbox losing? Like, he's just like confused, like, how are they losing so badly? And it's just like, because nobody cares or knows about that. But I do think there's like, I don't know. I think that accessibility is like how you get people to give your ecosystem a try. And I do think Xbox has a clear advantage there. And potentially that could be huge in the future with these new players who haven't decided where they're going to play yet.
Yeah. Xbox has a clear infrastructure advantage. There is no doubt when you play your Xbox and you can get the backwards compatibility clearly, when you can move your saves around. So obviously when you can get on a new console and have everything already there for you, that it is a much less clunky infrastructure than Sony and PlayStation, which I noticed immediately, even moving from the PlayStation 5 to the PlayStation 5 Pro. But
Yeah.
I don't know that it actually sells individuals on one or the other. It is still the flashy games that bring people in and keep them. And so that's what Microsoft is having trouble with. Yes, they're a software company first. They have a lot of this good infrastructure stuff solved. Sony does not, clearly. They're not as bad as Nintendo. Nintendo's the worst. But Sony does not have the same kind of smoothness of the entire ecosystem as Xbox does. But Xbox doesn't have the light show to bring people in. And so I think they've realized that. They're correcting it slowly. Obviously, at the tail end of this generation, putting them all on PlayStation doesn't give them that hardware differentiator solely on games right now. But as you both have said, they're looking at the long game. They don't care so much about 2025 to 2027, right? That's lost. It's done. It's gone. Let's go make money from the players on PlayStation because we have these games to sell somebody. And if you're at PlayStation, that doesn't really matter to us right now for Microsoft. But we definitely like to have more of a share of the market in the future. And so I am really intrigued. I think it's a big moment for Xbox if it is the tail end of next year. That sounds about right, 2026, for what it is that the Xbox project whatever is going to be. That's going to be a big moment for what their future holds, and we'll know better what it is at that point in time. But for everybody that says, well, they're opting out, they're a third-party publisher now, they're out of everything, I don't think that's the case. I just think that it's always been the mathematics here that there are so many players on PlayStation that it's silly to not sell your stuff to them. And it's been silly for a long time. And I said this at the tail end of the Activision Blizzard King videos that I did when we were talking about this initially. My expectation was that the vast bulk of the games that they were bringing in through that acquisition would move over to PlayStation. And I was surprised when Phil Spencer's initial response was, no, we're going to keep these in-house and then decide on a case-by-case basis, because that doesn't make sense for that expense. And then once you get to that logic on that expense, it doesn't make sense for the bulk of the rest of your ecosystem if you're just losing on the hardware sales. So this all makes sense to me. If anything, I think Microsoft was delayed in this by a couple of years, honestly. And Sony and PlayStation should be very pleased that this is happening when it is, because they are otherwise kind of naked in the dark with their own software. So This is perfect for really both sides. And as gamers first and not shareholders of either of these corporations, everybody should be happy with this state of affairs.
Agreed. And, I the only thing I want to caveat, right, when we say, and I know you mean this, Travis, so I'm not countering what you're saying, just for clarity. So when we say Xbox is losing, it's more about that hardware battle in the console space, right? In terms of losing, in terms of revenue, MAU, other things, right? They're doing very well. It's just, and they're going to do even better by doing moves like putting Forza Horizon on PlayStation.
Yeah, I'm talking about like player base and those
on
sorts
the
of things.
player base sold on the box. Like the Xbox ecosystem monthly active user is very strong.
Yeah, you have to count some things that are a little cheeky, like PC players who are playing on Minecraft, and I don't even know if
over Xbox Live.
Xbox Live, stuff like that.
But I mean, a good example here, right, is like Sea of Thieves. If you look at like the most played games on Xbox Live, right, so not Steam, but so PC, Xbox, and console, it's not even in top 50 played right now. But it was the 20th best-selling game last year. It sold extremely well on PlayStation and Steam, for that matter. So it's just, a game like that. Forza Horizon 5 is an incredible game. I think Forza Horizon 5 is only one of two games I've ever given a 10. I think.
I believe it was IGN's Game of the Year when it released.
It was.
Was it not?
Yeah. To my everlasting surprise, it was that year, which was super cool.
Yeah, I gave it a 10, and I'm a racing guy. It's just a phenomenal racing game, top to bottom. So this doesn't surprise me. You prefer 4 to 5?
4 was England, right? 5 is Mexico. I think I prefer.
That is 4. Correct. Yeah. 4 is great. I mean, they're all great games, honestly. I guess the only question I want to end on here, which I think is the biggest one for me, just thinking about it, is like you talk about Master Chief Collection, and then you talk about Halo, the future of Halo, of course, and then Halo Infinite, and you talk about like Gears Remastered Trilogy 1 through 3, and if they include Judgment, what have you. But then you have E-Day, obviously, coming. Phil actually posted from Coalition this week about getting an update on E-Day. So, like, do you think as they move these older versions, because let's remember Forza Horizon is 3 years old now. As they move these older titles over to PlayStation, get people in the PlayStation ecosystem who haven't played these games before interested in these Microsoft or Xbox IPs, do you think they still retain the new releases, the next Halo, E-Day, etc., Forza, whatever comes next? Do you think they retain those as Xbox and PC exclusive for a time?
I think they have incentive to do so. You know, you get somebody to play all the old Gears games, and then they find out they can play it on Xbox this year, or they can wait and play it on PlayStation in a year. I don't know that that gets people to buy your box like over one game, but I think on a long enough timeline, you start feeling like a second class citizen. All your, you know, it's like why you buy a PlayStation versus waiting for PlayStation to port the game to PC. It's just a long wait time, and you know, you want to play Red Dead Redemption 2 while all the people are talking about it. And you have to play it on console because it doesn't come to PlayStation or PC a year later. So I think there's like momentum behind that. I think people do make purchasing decisions based on that on a long period of time, but it would have to be a part of their strategy. It doesn't seem like it is a stated part of their strategy to delay releases right now. And if it did become part of the strategy, in order for it to be effective, they would have to do it and commit to that model for a very long period of time before they started seeing dividends, which Microsoft has shown absolutely no ability to commit to one strategy and stick with it over a long period of time.
They are a bit
basically
flighty.
they basically change their mind as soon as they have like one thing that doesn't work, and they give up on like their long-term plan. So I kind of find it unlikely. I think they might try it for a couple games and then fall off of it pretty quick when it doesn't immediately give them returns. That seems to be their MO on this sort of stuff. So, which is unfortunate because I do think that model would work for them. But also, like, I'm not trying to keep games off of other consoles. So, like, good on you.
No,
Xbox.
to be
Put
clear,
your
it
games
doesn't
out.
matter to me. Like,
Yeah.
I don't care. I'm just curious.
My feeling is because we are at the tail end of this generation, that we're not going to be able to take a lot of future strategy understanding, even from a day and date kind of release in these last couple of years of that generation. Xbox, Microsoft, I think, knows if they're at all intelligent in their boardroom, and I don't have any reason to believe that they're not, that the series generation is lost, and that there's no real reason to be fighting for hardware sales over dollars that come in from software. It's all the same. The money's still green either way. So I would expect that the future releases at the tail end of this generation might welcome day and date. But certainly those that have a heavy multiplayer or massive online component, everything that requires bodies, I would expect to come over straight to PlayStation. If it doesn't, the more single player games, the Indiana Joneses of the world might have a short delay, but not a huge delay, not an 18-month delay. It's something like a 3 or 4 month delay. You want to get that PlayStation 5 money. You're not going to use holding it hostage on the series systems as selling series boxes. So my expectation would be very, very close to day and date on basically everything towards the end of this generation, but not taking that as a promise for when the generation turns over.
Okay. Yeah, interesting thoughts. I'm very much of the opinion of, you know, I play a lot of multiplayer as we talk about here. So I'm very much of the opinion that put them on PlayStation. That's fine. I mean, you know, fish in a barrel, bring it on. So more players to shoot, more players to matchmake with, more players to build out those online communities, especially for the Halos and Gears of the world, which, you know, aren't as big as the third-party games like the Call of Duties, the Apexes, etc. I'm completely down for that, and I think they deserve it. So, yeah, I'm excited. And honestly, what we've seen, at least what I've seen of people I know at the studios making these games, they're happy. They're happy that more people get to play their games, which, you know, we've talked about here many, many times. A lot of this kind of walled garden argument, stupid console stuff really lives in the social media space. The people making the games don't have any dog in that fight. So
yeah, I will say all the studios I've been to that got acquired by Xbox when they were doing the buying spree are like pretty happy with the state of things under Xbox, which is
good.
Not always the case. Although it could be because Xbox seems pretty hands off and they're maybe getting
The ones that
more
are still
freedom than
here.
they should. Yeah, that's fair.
Well, I mean, I would not be surprised to see the pendulum move towards a more tyrannical executive office at Xbox at some point in the near future. They've had a lot of egg on their face in the last couple of years for releases. So we'll see how it goes. We'll see if they're happy. I want devs to be happy. I think happy devs make better games, but also they actually need to make the games, and the games need to come out.
Need a little pressure on them, don't they?
Well, I mean, I think every human being is maybe a little bit better off with demands for their excellence of some kind, whether that's coming from inside, whether that's coming from their clients, whether that's coming from their bosses. And so I do think that there is a complacency that can set in. I think that's honestly where much of the console warring online comes from with respect to Microsoft opting out of the generation is, okay, if they stop hardware, if they become Sega writ large, then do Sony and Nintendo just give up on trying to attract us at all? And I know that there's a lot of vibes out there that Sony is always teetering on the edge of becoming arrogant Sony, and that Microsoft was essentially a good counteractant to that. And if they opt out completely, is Sony just going to go off the deep end? I don't know what the future holds there, but I don't think Microsoft is likely to just opt out completely as some do. So I think this is a good spot for gamers. And I think everybody that gets upset about it is looking at things from the wrong perspective. But I also understand, as Travis points out, that some people only have enough resources for one of these boxes. They invested in the one that they thought was the best. And if everything moves over to the other box, they feel retroactively taken advantage of, that they didn't get the value they wanted out of the spend that they made. I can understand that feeling. That doesn't have to just be irrational shouting on the internet to sympathize with that position. I just don't think it's going to be as bad as all that.
Agreed on all.
Truth is, most gamers don't even notice which platforms the game's coming to. They just know that they have a box and they want to know if it can play the game that they want to play.
Also true.
That's really all it is, yeah.
Mass market especially, yeah, exactly.
It's also funny because most people, like the people I know that are so casual, they find out about games by like going to the store app on their Xbox. And so if a game's not on their platform, they don't even know. They like hear about it from a friend. They'll be like, "Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, you're playing Spider-Man? I didn't know that was a game." It's just funny.
Yep.
It's funny how
I had someone text me. I'm sorry, Travis. I thought you were done.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
No, you're good.
I was going to know I had an old friend who doesn't play hardly any games at all. He's like, "There's an Indiana Jones game." I was like, "Yeah, man." I was like, "It's really good too. Go play it." Like, I
like that Sony released like the remaster or the backwardsly compatible version of Staff of Kings the same week that Great Circle came out, and I'm like, I wonder how many people were like, "Oh, there's a new Indiana Jones game. Yeah, I got to pick that one up." We're like, "Yeah, no, that's a Wii game."
Xbox did that too when they announced the new one at their show. Which one was it? It was the original Xbox generation Indiana Jones game.
Oh yeah, it's backwards compatible. I have it. Yeah,
Emperor,
it's good.
Emperor or something.
Emperor's Tomb, I think.
Emperor's Tomb. Yeah, that one.
Yeah.
That they put that one out the day that they announced the new one. They were like, and here's the old one that you can play.
You could buy it on the store again.
And I actually went and played it. It is not hold up well. But what game does from that awkward generation of games?
Kung Fu Chaos. That's what
I really don't think so. People say that, and I really don't think so. I also tried Fusion Frenzy when they announced backwards compatibility. I played that, and I was like, wow, this is not as good as I remember. Like, these are really bad mini games. The only really one that holds up, well, it's not even from that generation though. It's Xbox
Halo, man.
I was going to say Big Bumpin', the Burger King game, $4. What's up?
I don't think I'm familiar with Big Bumpin'.
Wait, hold on. Are you guys not familiar with the holy trinity of Burger King?
No,
video games?
no.
I know Sneak Thief.
Yeah, there's three of them. There's three of them. Sneak King.
Do you call it Sneak Thief? Do you think the Burger King mascot is a thief? Is that what you think, Hogue? What is going on here? It's Sneak King.
It's a crown, Hogue. It's a crown.
Jesus.
Well, I apologize. My understanding
of cheeseburger. It's like you've never eaten a cheeseburger. It's crazy.
I apologize. Not only am I not a big fan of Burger King, I'm not a big fan of Burger King's video game releases.
Wow, dude.
You missed
Big
out.
Bumpin' is actually goated. If I could go back in time, I would play more Big Bumpin' when it was in its prime, and I would try to get all of the achievements in that game, because I never got all the achievements, and now it's like one of the most sought after completions.
Who is seeking these things? When you say sought after, who are the people seeking this after?
So there's a large Reddit community that really respects and admires the Burger King games. And if you have all the achievements in the Burger King games, you are considered goated.
So Reddit street cred is when you say sought after, what you're talking about?
All I'm saying is I would feel more comfortable with my accomplishments as a human being if I had all the achievements in Big Bumpin'.
All right. First of all, I also want to point out in the chat that Debbie Dubs, famed commenter, has the exact right answer for Indiana Jones games.
Okay.
I'm asking.
Well, it's a super chat. I mean, yeah, sorry. Seriously, I lost you guys for a couple seconds. Like, I think my internet kind of like everything went quiet, so I'm back. But yeah, that's the super chat. We'll get to it. You already segued me, so I might as well get to it now. But I want to before we move on. So shout out to Ash Axiom, who renewed membership on both channels and gifted a membership on both channels.
Fantastic! Thank you, Ash.
Yes, does that help me in some way? I see.
It does not.
It does not. Cool.
You've sold your soul to IGN. You don't have a channel, Travis.
Hey, I'm glad to have one. Destin had one.
I didn't say you're not allowed to have one, Travis. You just haven't been industrious enough to make one.
I'll never make one. Yeah, I'll never be a YouTuber. I don't think I could have sort of self-respect if I'm a YouTuber.
I appreciate it, buddy.
Ash, thank you very much. Always good to see you. And Debbie Dubs with the $5 super chat as Hogue reference. Hit us, Travis.
Ahem. The original Indiana Jones game is Fate of Atlantis. Rest in peace, LucasArts.
Rest in peace, original LucasArts. They brought the brand back.
They're back, bro.
To do their license store management.
They have some good games.
Of things like The Great Circle and Outlaws. So, like, LucasArts is doing some work.
Yeah. But you're right. There are other Indiana Jones games as well.
Well, Fate of Atlantis is fantastic.
Yeah, that's a classic. Yeah, no doubt.
The original Indiana Jones game, not the best one though.
Debbie Dubs, thank you very much. Wasn't there? I'm going way back now, but wasn't there an Indiana Jones game on the Atari 2600?
There was. Yeah, there was. I own it.
Okay. Yeah. Which Elu just said in the chat. Elu and I are usually on the same cadence here. So, but anyway, we'll see what happens with Xbox. I'm very curious to see. Obviously, they've been really good with their showcases, just to close the loop on this. So obviously, if you didn't see, Summer Game Fest just got announced for June 6th. So those are starting, those things are starting to circle already. So we'll see what Xbox does.
Get those ads ready, Jeff.
Jeff needs to be paid. Ads.
He needs that money. So I think, Xbox, assuming they follow their normal cadence, we will get a big summer showcase to see what's happening. So who knows what we'll see.
Showcase?
Showcases are good.
Yes. Wanted to quickly mention, we're going to jump over to PlayStation real quick because I just wanted to mention they had the leadership shuffle this week, and I saw some commentary on this that was kind of out of sorts. I don't think people were understanding maybe what was happening in the corporate space here.
To be fair, I'm not positive Sony has been understanding what was happening in their executive offices for the last 3 months.
Also fair. Yeah, that is also fair. So anyway, let me just pull this up and read it. Bear with me here, because basically I got pinged by a bunch of people saying that what's his name, Herman, had been demoted. So I quickly kind of went and looked at the press release and wanted to find the actual announcement from Sony here. And here's actually what is stated. So PlayStation today announced the appointment of Hideaki, I believe that is, Hideaki Nishino, to the role of president and CEO effective April 1st. This marks an evolution designed to maximize synergies across, the typical corporate speak here. Yes. SIE, that it was announced last year, in which Nishino was appointed CEO of Platform Business Group, alongside Herman Holst, who was appointed CEO of Studio Business Group. Holst will continue to serve as CEO of Studio Business Group, reporting to Nishino because Nishino was promoted. They also announced there's some few other movements here with Hiroki Tataki, president, COO, CFO.
I've had that.
What?
You're not demoted. You just have a new boss now. Typical.
Well, that's kind of where I was going, is like, this is obviously just a movement around of their C-suite. Nishino being promoted to CEO just means that Holst is reporting to him now. Holst was not demoted.
Yeah, you're not demoted. You just have less power now, and you have a boss that used to be your peer. It's fair. Yeah,
they were co-CEOs that was never going to last very long. I think even Sony knew that was not going to last very long. We talked about that last year as being essentially a software head and a hardware head. And what do we know about Sony over the last year? We know that software has been a tire fire and that hardware has been remarkably resilient, even without the backing of software. So yes, it makes sense that if you're going to pick a winner out of that duo, it's going to be the hardware guy. But I think it's really, really notable that they didn't move on from Holst. They said, you're still going to run studios, my man. And
Correct.
okay, Sony, that's fine. But maybe you're not making the changes that you need to make for your software publication side of things, because I think they are in real trouble there. I don't know Herman Holst. I don't know him as a person. He might be the nicest guy on earth, but I think
his name's Herman.
I think they've gone in a bad direction with their software production at Sony Interactive Entertainment. And so the most surprising thing out of this to me was not any demotion or promotion. I don't really care. It's all relative. But keeping Herman Holst in that role is an actual sign of good faith, not the press release kind where you say, oh, everything's fine here, don't worry about anything. But this is an action, not just talk. Keeping him there suggests that they're happy with some direction at software, even if they think hardware is more important and they elevate the hardware guy, because they're right.
All I'm saying is I have a lot of empathy for Herman in the situation, and I'm sure it feels like a demotion to him. So Herman, stay strong, my brother. You got this. All right. You're still valuable. You didn't win the Bake Off, but that doesn't mean you can't still have a fruitful career.
God.
Travis,
I believe in you.
So many people would be fired with the outcomes that have occurred under the Herman Holst software regime. So many people.
I'm telling you.
So I can be sympathetic. I can say, yes, you now have a boss and you didn't have a boss before. But honest to God, the fact that you still have a job and presumably a really nice corner office is really impressive. Enjoy that, because you haven't earned it from your actual results.
You know, you're sounding like Herman's boss, frankly, right now. And
well, let's be clear. Yeah, you know, this is SIE underneath Sony Corp, right? So CEO of Sony Corp is, let's see, to become president and CEO of Sony Corp is Hiroki Tataki, right? Is that Hiroki Tataki?
Maybe.
Go
ahead.
Who was COO and CFO of Sony Group, is stepping down from the SIE chairman position to become president and CEO of Sony Group Corp. And that Lin Tao, currently serving as SVP, Finance, Corporate Strategy, and Development, will step down to become CFO of Sony Group. So those are the kind of those are the heads, right? That's the head of the entire organization.
Those are the parent companies, yes.
Yeah.
And when I say you don't have a boss, I mean that parent company is the buck stopping place for you making mistakes, but it's not a formal day-to-day, I report to this person. They need to hear from me what I'm doing. And so now Herman Holst is going to have somebody to report to, in essence. But yeah, their software has been a tire fire. The reason you see these shuffling chairs is because they are trying to shore up their investors' understanding of what the hell they're doing with all this. And that's fine.
My boy. Stop hurting my boy Herman.
I don't know Herman Holst.
He's already got a rough enough life. His name is Herman Holst. He sounds like a company that makes tires. Okay, stop hurting my boy.
I am not trying to hurt anybody. I am trying to say that the realistic look at what Sony Studios have as their output over the last little while is not strong.
Yeah. On that note, so, and we'll see if this comes to fruition, but I believe it's Nate the Hate who, you know, he's kind of pretty known in the gaming community for industry of like knowing what's coming, and he's been right about nearly everything. Says state of play in 2 weeks around Valentine's Day from Sony. So my question is, the hell do they show?
That's very curious. Yote. That's got to be Yote.
Yote and Wolverine is my guess.
There's no Wolverine. Wolverine ain't anywhere near done.
I think they should show trailers for all the games they canceled, just whatever they had before the game got canceled. And I think they should call it the FOMO Expo, because it rolls right off the tongue and you'll never be able to play any of these games. Who's with me?
It's going to be Yote. It might be Fair Games. I don't know if that game still exists.
They should have introduced each one of them himself.
I love that
personally.
half the things I say, you guys just pretend I didn't say it on this podcast. That's my favorite.
We just move on. We've gotten used to it by now.
Completely ignore the fact that I said the thing. Move right on. I love it.
I want to back up for a second. So Yote and Wolverine are the ones we know, right? Hogue, you just said Wolverine is nowhere close. I disagree. I think we're going to see Wolverine this year.
You'll see a logo perhaps. I don't think Wolverine is ready, but I mean, look, it's just supposition. It's just guessing.
They're
on
fast
my part.
though. That studio go burr.
Yeah. You know they're going to use a lot of shared stuff with Spider-Man too. So
hopefully not too much shared from Spider-Man
slinging
2.
around New York as Wolverine. Clearly,
yeah, as you do. Someone Gamefire says Death Stranding 2. Is sitting out there.
Death Stranding 2 is a big one, but I don't know whether they'll give a state of play time to it. But Yotei's going to be the big show.
Yeah, I mean Yotei's the focus for sure. The only other thing I've really just personally waiting to see from PlayStation is what the hell Housemarque has been working on since Returnal. So
I said that at the top of the year when you asked for what I would be excited about. Yes, Housemarque is a great choice for saying something.
Yeah,
Returnal is the best game of the generation.
What do you call the sequel to Returnal? You can't call it.
I call it a completely different genre, a completely different game. They're not making a sequel to Returnal.
Returnal?
No. Beginnal.
Return all over again?
We've reached that point of the show.
What about Marathon? They got Bungie working on something.
Marathon.
Marathon, we've actually seen gameplay of. I think that's going to be part of it.
Have we? I think they went back to the studs on that.
No, I was going to say we saw gameplay. They have Marathon is pretty far along. I will say,
but they said that they were going completely back to the drawing board on Marathon.
That was a long time ago, dude.
I don't know when it was. I can't respond to that.
Wasn't what? Do I have my mindset right that the original or not original the feedback that Bungie got from the people who playtested Marathon was very poor?
I don't remember that. I don't remember hearing anything.
You're thinking of their other game that was never announced and then seemingly canceled, even though you can't really cancel it if you didn't announce it.
So you're talking about Marathon's the extraction shooter, right?
Yeah.
I have to look that up.
I don't think that's true, but I know that they have they've had a gameplay lead team that includes some of the biggest boys on Destiny for a while, and that game is probably pretty far along, if I had to guess. Also,
by the way, shout out to Edward Walton, who has our winner, which is Point of No Returnal.
Oh, I like it.
It's good.
Wait, Point of No Returnal would mean that you're not playing a game though, because there's no Returnal. When you're at the point of no Returnal, you're not playing Returnal, right?
I don't know. We're moving on.
That's one of the ones you should have just pretended I didn't say.
Oh my god. While we're at it here, thanks for everyone hanging out with us. About 220 concurrent right now. So as I'm trying to do every episode, hit that like button. If you're enjoying hanging out with us, hit a comment, help us out a little bit on both sides of the house. We appreciate it. And with that said, we're going to talk about a sad state of affairs over at one of our favorite studios, or what was one of our favorite studios in BioWare. So this week at BioWare, we get, and bear with me, I'm just pulling up the press release. I did not.
This week at BioWare, the TWAB.
The TWAB.
There already is a TWAB, as you well know.
It's actually called the TWID now, unfortunately. The TWAB is dead. Long live the TWID.
Okay.
Sorry.
Long live the TWID.
It's because they have multiple games now, so they can't call it this week at Bungie. So, yeah.
Oh, my God. All right. Moving on from Bungie. So, BioWare studio update. So, we get this announcement from the general manager at BioWare, Gary McKay, and it's kind of nondescript of like, now that Dragon Age Veilguard has been released, a core team at BioWare is developing the next Mass Effect game under leadership of veterans from the original trilogy, including Mike Gamble and et cetera, in keeping with their fierce commitment to innovating during the development and delivery of Mass Effect. We have challenged ourselves to think deeply about delivering. I hate reading this stuff.
Ains has been to a couple of PR
good God. Meetings. Yeah, this is painful. So
this is how BioWare always sounds.
Make it more robotic.
Given the stage of development, we don't require support from the full studio. We have incredible talent, and so we have worked diligently over the past few months to match many of our colleagues with other teams at EA that had open roles that were a strong fit. Today's news will see BioWare become more agile, focused studio that produces unforgettable RPGs. We appreciate your support as we build a new future for BioWare. Of course, shortly after this, we began to see all of the people who were laid off and saying they no longer have a job, including much of the writing team and other members.
The whole writing team. Seemingly everybody that worked on Veilguard.
Except for 4 people. There's literally 4 writers left at BioWare that we could track anyway. We were tracking this over at the SG Discord.
They weren't laid off, okay? They just had no job promoted above them.
Stop it. So at this point in time, there are less than 100 people at BioWare that have been, it's been kind of confirmed. There's fewer than 100 people at BioWare, where there was a little over 200 at, when they were fully producing Veilguard. It seems the only game they have a focus on is the next Mass Effect. And I guess what I want to ask you guys is, you've got the Mass Effect IP. The expectations for that game are going to be untenable, basically. They're not going to be able to be met. You have this BioWare that is to even call it a shell of what BioWare once was is almost not even correct. My personal opinion, I don't see BioWare. I see them releasing Mass Effect maybe, and then being gone. I don't see how they could ever meet the expectations of the next Mass Effect in this kind of structure.
I mean, BioWare is just a name like any other, right? People make games, not brands. And like I said earlier in this video, to me, the legacy of BioWare is things like Yellow Brick, things that we can see from other people doing other things in the industry. This particular group of people who work under the BioWare name, under the EA parentage, are unlikely to produce greatness. Doesn't mean it's impossible. I'm rooting for them. But honestly, if you liked BioWare's DNA, if you liked what they released, it's better to follow the people that were responsible for that than to stick with the brand name, because this is not likely to have great results. Doesn't mean it can't. I hope it does. But if I'm rooting for Mass Effect, honestly, I'm following the Exodus project more than I'm following BioWare.
I think we've talked about how we disagree on this point somewhat, Hogue. Obviously, people make games and you should care about where those people go, but also studio legacies matter. And the fact that people want to work at those studios because they like the types of games that they make matters, and their unique approach and mission statement as a company matters. And I think there's a reason studios change people but still develop the same types of game. But BioWare is probably the best example of like that legacy being eroded and trust being eroded and quality and yada yada. Management from EA at some points being a bit heavy-handed, and I think it's just a death by 1,000 cuts, it seems like, with the studio. So I arrive at the same conclusion, even though I think more generally I disagree with the notion that the name of the studio doesn't matter. I think it matters a great deal, but in BioWare's case, I think it's sort of been bled at this point, to the point where I don't know anybody who still expects the same type of thing from BioWare given its current state of affairs. So it's unfortunate.
Yeah.
I agree. I would like to have more companies making games that I love. I didn't hate Veilguard. You know that. I've said that here in this space. I thought it was a bad Dragon Age game and not a great RPG, but I thought it was a good game. And honestly, the reclamation project of saving it from whatever multiplayer fiasco it was trying to be to begin with is impressive. That was an impressive project management task done by BioWare. It's a shame they had to do it. It's a bigger shame that they had to do it over a course of so many years and that they didn't sell as many as they would have needed to even justify that whole process. But looking at Mass Effect 5, and they say, well, we only need like 6 people because we're in pre-production, doesn't suggest to me that they're going to make it across the finish line. Like, I would not get excited about Mass Effect as a project because I have no idea what level of development they're even in, but it seems really, really early. And that requires a lot of trust from the financier to get you across the finish line years and years and years from now.
Agreed.
I wonder what they've been doing this whole time, because we've seen trailers and sizzle reels and I think even a Vidoc at some point that was like years ago, man.
Yeah, it's the keep people excited about the brand kind of stuff, the BS that we see from CD Projekt on occasion.
Or Bethesda.
Yeah, or Bethesda. I mean, for God's sakes, Elder Scrolls 6, that announcement is ridiculous.
How long ago was that? Was that like a decade ago?
It
It
was
was a
like
long
6 years
time
ago, I think. So it was a long
I think
time.
it's longer than that, Hogue.
Yeah,
I think they said it's oh damn, the gap between the trailer releasing and Skyrim's release is now larger than the trailer and now, or something like that. Like, you know what I mean? So that's at least like 8 years or soming.
It
So-
says
Yeah, it was
June
announced
2018. So I said 6 years. It's
7 years. Okay.
7 years. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm at a loss for words. I think that what you said, Hogue, is my thought too, in the sense of like, obviously I'm rooting for them. Obviously, I hope we actually get a Mass Effect game that lives up to the IP. I would adore that. I'll be all over it. I don't see how that happens in this space. I don't see it happening. And we'll come back if it does, of course, or we'll come back if it doesn't. But this is not great.
No, it strikes me as enormously unlikely.
Yeah. And we were joking about this on the Discord the other day. It's like there is a timeline, I realize, alternate timeline somewhere in the universe or multiverse, where they double down on Anthem, all jokes aside. They double down on it. They do the 2.0. They bring it back to a competent, you know what I mean, long-term play. And they successfully kind of divide that studio between Anthem support and actual core single-player experiences. And the BioWare we love is alive today. But obviously, that's a timeline that's very different from the one we live in.
I would have liked to have seen 2.0. I would have. But again, talking about the internet meme of the space city, if things were a little bit different, there's a timeline where they don't bother to try to make a live service loot game.
Also true. True.
Maybe they survive a little bit better off of that. There's a timeline where they don't sell to EA. I mean, there's a whole host of things that could have happened here. BioWare was one of the legends, but video gaming, like most kind of media, it doesn't stay stagnant. So BioWare being a legend is worth absolutely nothing to the new people looking for video games, just like Square Enix and Final Fantasy isn't selling on its name alone anymore. And that's partially Square Enix's fault.
Yeah. Yes, sir. All right. Yeah, but anyway, we'll see what happens. Obviously, wishing that team the best and who's left, and anyone.
Maybe
obviously
we won't see what happens. Counterpoint.
That's actually true.
No,
Maybe
I
we
think
won't.
nothing is still something happening for purposes of this conversation. So
No, I'm saying maybe we won't see it. We don't know.
If we see the studio die, that is still something we see.
Solar flare kills
I
us
may
all.
be dead
We don't
before
see it
the next Mass
Yeah.
Effect ever comes out.
I'm sorry, Travis. I was discounting the fact that you might be advocating for an apocalypse.
Yeah, I wasn't advocating. I was leaving the door open for it, and that's really close-minded of you to not. It's just like, I guess I think we need to end the show. I'm losing my mind.
if we ended the show every time you lost your mind, we wouldn't have a show. But
so true. Let's call it a day. I'm ready for lunch and a nap. Who's with me? Ames? Want an orange slice?
Oh my God. All right. On that note, we will actually wrap up here. We have covered our topics. This is my week. I am hugely, hugely, hugely excited for Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. It comes out this week. I know, 2 days. It literally comes out the day I have to fly for work, and I will not be home for.
Wait, it comes
days,
out in
which
2
sucks.
days, and you're reviewing it?
No, I'm not reviewing it. I'm just excited to play it.
Wait,
He would like
people
to play the game.
People are reviewing that game already, right? We're not getting.
Yeah, the embargo's
that's
tomorrow.
the one where we got it. We got it a really long time.
Yeah,
ago.
it came out in December for you guys.
That's
Yeah,
right.
yeah. Embargo's
So-
tomorrow. I do know that.
Somebody's done with the review already over there.
Yeah, but I can't wait. Super pumped. So I may take Friday off of work next week and just come home from travel and just play some KCD2.
You say that, but you're going to play Hello Kitty Island Adventure. I know that.
I mean, I already have like 15, 20 hours in it, so we'll see how much it can continue to
He needs
keep
to
my
see if he can
attention.
find time after Infinity Nikki sessions to play Hello Kitty Island.
All fair.
Adventure.
You make fun, but that was my day yesterday. People ask me where I find the time to game. I played Hello Kitty Island Adventure and Infinity Nikki. That was like a 12-hour sequence of my day, spending time with my daughter.
You should see my fit in Infinity Nikki is. Whew.
Oh man, they're having a great
hours.
Chinese New Year event. Your dress actually has animated fireworks on it. It's fantastic.
Does it? Yeah.
Yes.
Mine's got animated snakes. You're the snake. You got to do it up.
Yeah,
so
that's fair.
Yeah. Anyway, boys, we will have, what do we have this week? I want to talk about at SG. Obviously we have our reviews up, like I said, Tales of Iron 2. We've got Sword of the Necromancer, Eternal Strand, the PC overview of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, our Veilguard article, and Switch article. So there's a bunch out there. Veilguard article. And Avowed still a little ways out, so we'll talk about that when we're able to, of course. But other than that, check us out. Thanks for hanging out with us. Travis, I'll go to you first this week.
I have nothing to report. Avowed review is pretty far away from being done, and I can't talk about it anyway. So shut up. I don't want to talk to you anymore. I'm too cool for you.
We know you're not playing Avowed. You're just getting your review copy of Date Everything ready.
That's right. I'm getting my review copy of Date Everything ready, and then I'm writing my review of Avowed, having not played the game, because that's how we do it at IGN.
Oh.
Keep it locked. Keep it locked.
That's that Obsidian money coming in.
Yeah,
oh boy,
right. They paid me enough. They're getting that 8 out of 10. That
they bought a 6.
To buy. Yeah, the 6. Dude, I would love to see a hypothetical pricing structure for IGN review scores. That would be so funny. $50,000 just to get through the door gets you a 6 out of 10. It's like, wait, what?
I assume it would just be based on reviewer. 50,000 gets you a Travis review. You got to pay out of that.
Yeah, 50,000 gets you a Travis review, and they're like, "Oh, dude, you're gonna do me dirty like that? How do I get that Altman money up in here, please?" Yeah.
Oh, by the way, Elu reminded me we do get the next demo or beta, whatever you want to call it, of Monster Hunter Wilds this week, and he's got a Monster Hunter Wilds article going up early this week as well. So we'll talk about that next week too. 2 huge games coming out this month. I mean,
if you got a hankering for Monster Hunter, there is a fair amount of Monster Hunter DNA in Eternal Strands. There are specific ways you have to take on the bosses to get the best stuff. It's good stuff. Play that game.
I'll think about it. Hogue, what you want to call that, man?
Well, I said I did a virtual legality this last week about the FTC and Genshin Impact. For other folks that aren't interested in those things, I also did a long-form stream covering another lawsuit in Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds versus Justin Baldoni. So if you're interested in that story, it gets crazier as we go along, and I can't keep up with all the lawsuits flying around. But I did a stream on that this last week. I will probably do another one this coming week because we got to catch up somehow. And the channel's doing really, really well. I really appreciate all the support from everybody. It's been a very strong start of 2025 for the channel. And we're doing a lot of good work there. So I'm proud of it.
Good. I don't follow anything in the media, social space, but I saw something somewhere about this Blake Lively, whatever nonsense. And I was
that's a pretty wild story.
That looks like a train wreck. Yeah.
So it's a cluster, as they might say.
Yeah. Cool. Well, glad to hear it, man. Appreciate you. Chat, you're awesome as always. Thank you, everyone, for hanging out with us. As we always say, if you enjoy the content, enjoy hanging out with us, whether you're doing it live or in audio or during the week, hit that like button and share it out. We really appreciate it. We will be back next week, and hope you enjoy your week of gaming and get ready to play some Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. I'm headed to 16th Century Bohemia, as you do during the week. So until then, we'll see you next week. Peace.